Greetings, YouTube friends and families, my fellow creatives, INFJs, and everybody who graces me with your presence here on this channel. I appreciate you. I'm happy you're tuning in. I want to talk to you about writing. So obviously this is a passion of mine, and it's something that I have a lot of thoughts on. And one of the thoughts I had was to cover the topic of why I don't read books. I don't read good. I don't book good. Because there are some things that really irritate me about the writing community in general, about writers in general, and about how many pretentious jerks are out there that are going to sit there and tell you that you can't do something. So let me get into this, and I'm going to be really blunt and honest with you about some of these thoughts that are in my head. And I'm coming to you as a published author. And so let's cover this stuff, and maybe, just maybe, it'll resonate with you. Let's get to it, folks. Here we go. Two and a half years ago, I bought a deck of cards. This is what the cards look like. It's called the So deck. It says a collection of questions for deeper discussion. They're pretty cool, and they have topics on them. And we use these. I was in like a small writers group. Now, at this point, I was working on a story, and probably about, I'd say 20,000 words in, which is a lot of words. I mean, it's a lot, but like, it's not a lot. You know what I mean? Like, it was definitely more than just like writing a couple things down. Like, I write a story and there's this guy and he's doing this and blah, blah, blah. So I was fleshing out a story, and I was trying to make my way through it because I wanted to finish it off. And I was in a small writing group, and it was just a couple of us that met at a coffee shop and just kind of talked about our projects. It was really nothing dramatic or anything like that. We barely read anything to each other or anything along those lines. And so this card was a writing prompt, and I'm going to hold it up for you so you can see the prompt. And it's, what is the oldest item in your possession? It's 2.5 years ago. This card came out of the deck and got into my hand, and we decided, we'll write a couple words about it, right? Just like as a writing exercise for fun, and we'll gather again next week and talk about it. 2.5 years later, that card turned into a finished book, right? My debut novel, 345 pages, 85,000-ish words, and right now getting plenty of sales and getting a lot of reviews on Amazon. There's reviews on Amazon Canada, on Amazon UK, and it's actually getting out there into the world. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies have been sold. And how did this end up happening for somebody who will admit right now to you that I don't read? I don't read books. And there's this whole stigma around this, and it's something that's definitely a topic of discussion. Now, look, you don't have to go very far to see quotes like Stephen King, for instance, saying something like this, which, in my opinion, is super pretentious and is essentially saying, if you don't read, you shouldn't be writing. As a matter of fact, I decided to just do a basic Google search. I mean, it took me all of just a few seconds, and then I come up with this article: 6 reasons you will never be a writer. What's reason number 1? That's reason number 1. I can't think of a better way to be an absolute jerk and take people that want to do something and tell them that they can't do it and they don't belong in this community because they don't read. Now, certainly, the method and the path that I have will not work for everybody. And I'm not saying that you should pointedly avoid reading things. That's just stupid. That's not my point here. My broader point here is the fact that you will have these gatekeepers to the writing community who will tell you that if you don't read books, you cannot write books. I am here to tell you, from somebody who has gone through this, that is absolute, unequivocal bullshit. If you want to be a writer and you want to craft a story, you need to understand story. You need to understand what makes a compelling character. You need to understand all of these things. Now, can you do that without being subjected to stories? There's an argument to be said that no, you can't. Stories are movies. Stories are brief short stories. Stories can be anything. It can be a life experience. It can be any number of things. Just something even on the news is a story. That's why they call it a news story, for crying out loud. Human interactions, emotions, plot twists, all of this stuff exists in the real world around you if you're paying attention to it. I don't need to read A Tale of Two Cities in order to learn how to write good. It doesn't work that way. And I'll tell you, when I set out and had the idea of like, you know what, I want to write a book, I really absorbed all of these, honestly, just really pretentious remarks about how you shouldn't be writing. I mean, these are words like, especially if you're on Twitter and you're on the writing community there, these are things that you will see all the time. You will see, if you don't read, you should not be writing a book. You're telling somebody to not be creative because they don't do it the way you do it. They're saying if you don't study story structure and the 3-act structure to a story, that you have no business writing a book or writing a story. I looked at all this and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I don't want a cookie cutter story. I don't want something that follows the same structure as every other story out there. Now, if you look at some of the reviews of my book, you'll see words like refreshing or captivating and emotional. One of the other things you'd notice is that a lot of people give me feedback and they say, you know what? I've never read anything like this before. That's what I wanted. And so not reading certain things was a choice for me. Now, certainly I have read books before. My favorite book is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I've read countless times stories from Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft because I love that dark kind of mysterious horror. That whole vibe to me is just incredibly alluring. And so I've done that. I used to read Lovecraft and Poe with a piece of paper next to me, and I would write down the words that I didn't understand, and then I'd go back through the dictionary and write down the definitions. So certainly reading is beneficial. You are going to expand your vocabulary by leaps and bounds. You are going to get a feel for the types of things that you do and you do not like, but they will influence you. Something surprising happened to me when I saw somebody review my work, and they said it reminded them of Piers Anthony and his Xanth series. And I thought, man, that's the coolest thing ever, because when I was a kid, and I'm talking like maybe 11 years old or something like that, Piers Anthony was one of my favorite authors, and I'd completely and totally forgotten about it. A lot of people don't like him. It's just kind of that sort of pop fantasy writing, but I absolutely loved Piers Anthony books, and On a Pale Horse was one of my favorites. And wouldn't you know it, here I am years and years and years later writing a book where death is in fact a character. Go figure. It just goes to show you what your influences are. Now, I'm happier about seeing somebody review my work and say, hey, this reminds me of Constantine and The Matrix, because I'm a movie guy. I see things visually, and that's how I absorb information. That's how I picture what I'm writing. I see it as a movie, and all I do is describe it, what I'm seeing, the movie that's in my head. So for somebody to pick out some of my favorite movies, which I don't typically reference, and to say, hey, this book reminds me of these movies, and of course they all have Keanu Reeves in them because I have like a total dude crush on Keanu. Who doesn't? John Wick. I mean, or Bill and Ted, obviously. That means a great deal to me. So there were a couple things that happened as I was in the process of writing this book. And I'd sent out some sample chapters to some various people just to kind of get some feedback. One of the things that I heard from multiple people is, hey, this reminds me of Jim Butcher's Dresden Files. Now, when I heard that from numerous people, I made a concerted effort. I'm sorry, Jim. I'm never going to read your books now. And I'm never going to watch a show that has to do with the Dresden Files. I don't want to know anything about it because I don't want undue influence of someone else's work to color my original thoughts. And they are my original thoughts. Sure, okay, everything's been done before. I get that. But to me, if I've never been exposed to it and I'm thinking it, Well, that's mine. When people are like, oh, your book is just like this, you should read this book. No, I'm absolutely not going to do that. And the more things I hear about that my writing is like, or my style is like, the less I'm going to be inclined to look at it, because I don't want it to influence my voice and my unique voice and my creativity. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to discourage you from learning how to craft a story and learning the nuts and bolts of story writing and your 3-act structure and all of those things. My path was different. My path, my creativity, my methods, my process include not reading other stories and not having the undue influence of those stories in my writing. You'll see media in my writing more than you'll see other words in my writing. Perfect example is just saying that, hey, your book reminds me of these movies. That is exactly in line with where my influences are. Mostly, I just want to encourage you as a writer and working on your story and your craft to not listen to these naysayers that are out there saying, you know what, you can't write if you don't read books. You shouldn't be writing a novel if you're not absorbing 10 books a month or what have you. It's all complete nonsense. And I'm sitting here as proof of it. I wrote a book. It's a good book. And I did it with, I don't even remember the last book I read that wasn't like a kid's book, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Nobody's reading my book saying, you know what, it reminds me a lot of like the Pigeon Finds a Hot Dog. Which, by the way, is Mo Willems. And he writes amazing kids' books. He is one of my favorites. Yeah, like I'm reading my back cover, but there's nothing about my main character finding a hot dog or not being allowed to drive the bus. Just saying. Don't let him do it. Don't. Listen, as a writer, it's hard enough not thinking that you're trash on a daily basis. You write that first draft, you know it's crappy, your grammar's all over the place, you're in and out of whatever tense you decided to write in, the story's maybe not making a lot of sense, you're going on tangents and kind of throwing things in and just sort of patching it all together. It's a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. But the words are going to come out and they're going to get down. You don't need negative voices in your ear telling you that you can't do it because you don't do it the way people want you to do it or the way they say it should be done. No. The same thing goes for publishing your work afterwards. Well, you're not a real author if you don't traditionally publish. Bullshit. I'm absolutely a real author. I wrote the book. I edited the book. The book has passed through a professional edit. The cover was done. Everything was posted. Everything is up there. It's on Kindle. It's on ebook. And it's out there getting sales and getting reviews. Lots of my prior videos, I describe the difference between being a writer and being an author. If you're writing words, you're a writer. Absolutely. Published author is different. And that's something that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of other legwork. But I've never published a book before. I'm not a publishing house, yet here it is, like physical and in the world. Because I've never done it, I'm not allowed to, or some kind of a gatekeeper is going to tell me that I shouldn't. No, don't listen to those voices. It's just negative for the sake of being negative. Keep in mind that everything has been done before. And when you have an idea and you think it's a cool idea, it's just the difference between something being an original idea and something being a unique idea, or having your unique twist and your voice on it. And that's what will make your words impact other people and make them resonate. And you can absolutely do it. There's nothing saying you can't. And don't let anybody say that if you don't read books or you don't follow a certain story structure or story arc for your characters, that your book is not going to be any good. It's a bunch of garbage. Be careful, people. Careful of the advice that's out there. And you'll see a lot of people, YouTubers in particular, who have writing channels. And they will be giving you all of the writing advice. How to write this character, how to write scenes with multiple characters, how to do this, that, and the other. And they've never written a book or published anything. And some of the ideas are good ideas. Some of them aren't. Everybody's path is going to be different. What's yours? What's your path going to be? And are you going to allow these negative voices to tell you that you shouldn't be doing something that in your creative heart, you know needs to be produced and manifested in the physical world. Don't let them do it. Know that I absolutely believe in you. And I'm a perfect example. I am an absolutely perfect example of somebody who just went through it. And while, yeah, I got hit with some of that negativity, and on rare occasions, it made me want to just stop and quit altogether, but just kept moving on because I had a story to tell, and I believed that I could do it in a way that was unique and creative and was following my own path. So follow yours. Don't do it the way other people have. Don't think that the only way that you're going to have success is to do things the same way somebody else did. Cut your own path. But for the love of all things, don't listen to somebody who tells you you can't do it because you're not doing it the way they think you should. They're not you. You're not trying to please them. All you're trying to do is get your words and your creativity down, and you absolutely can do it. I believe in you. There's going to be lots more writing content to come from me because I have a lot to say about this process, about writing in general, about some of the tools that I've used, and the whole timeline of going from one little sentence, one little question right here. What is the oldest item in your possession? To a finished novel that's actually having some success. And I hope that my journey and some of the thoughts that I have can inspire you to keep putting words down on that page. Please do it. The world needs to hear your voice. We need more of these creative people out here, and you need to not be afraid. Don't be afraid of some pretentious gatekeepers telling you that you can't do something because you aren't doing it their way. Do it your way. Be an individual. Follow your creative voice. Get it done. If you like this, like what I have to say and want to hear more, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that kind of stuff. There's plenty more INFJ content to come. I have quite a bit of stuff that kind of crosses between both, right? Because I have very unique perspectives as an INFJ, and I'm not afraid to sit here and create a video and tell you that I just don't read. So hopefully that resonates with you. And stick around and let's have some discussions about this kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you again with some writing stuff very, very soon.